Hi everyone, I am Lisa. In our podcast, we break down the complexity of the English language into simple pieces.
And I am Eric. Join us as we explore vocabulary, idioms, and more, all explained in plain English.
Let's make learning English fun
Then,
and accessible.
to provide.
Okay, Eric, please tell us what the words are today.
Okay, Lisa. The first word today is awful. Then we will continue with previous and to provide. Then to get along with. And the final one is to judge a book by its cover.
Okay, let's move on to our first word. What is the first word, Eric?
The first word today is awful.
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 Awful. That sounds intense. What does it mean?
Awful means something that is very bad or unpleasant. It's stronger than just saying bad.
Can you give us some sentences with awful?
Certainly. Imagine someone tasting a new dish. They might say, "This soup tastes awful. I can't eat it." And another person might agree, saying, "I agree. It's too salty."
I see. Can we use awful for things other than food?
Absolutely. It's like watching a movie. That disappoints you. You could say, "The movie was awful. The plot made no sense."
So it's about strong negative feelings.
That's right. And we use it a lot when something is really bad.
I see. Can you provide an example of dialogue using the word awful?
Sure thing. Here's one.
How was your experience at the restaurant last night?
It was awful. The food was cold, and the service was really slow.
I got it. In this dialogue, Sam says that their experience at the restaurant was very bad because the food was cold and the service was slow, right?
That's correct, Lisa. It's common to use the word awful to describe something unpleasant.
Got it. So awful is for when things are really, really bad.
Exactly. Now, let's try a different setting. Imagine you're at a concert, and the singer's performance was terrible, and someone said, "That concert was awful. I want my money back." So, they felt very disappointed by the experience.
Thanks for explaining awful, Eric.
You're welcome, Lisa. By the way, it's a strong word, so use it carefully.
Yes, and we hope our listeners don't have too many awful experiences. Now, Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to deal with awful situations?
One tip is to try to stay positive and focus on the things you can control. It's important to remember that bad days happen to everyone, and they usually pass.
That's great advice, Eric. Staying positive can definitely help us having tough times. Well, it seems like we've covered the word awful quite well. Shall we move on to the next word?
Yes, let's move on to the next word. The next word is previous.
Previous.
Previous. Previous is used to describe something that happened or existed before the present time.
So like when something happened earlier or before something else.
Exactly, Lisa. For example, if you're talking about your last job, you might say, "In my previous job, I worked as a teacher."
I see. Can you provide an example dialogue using the word previous?
Sure, Lisa. Let's listen to the example dialogue.
Did you watch the previous episode of our favorite TV show?
No, I missed it. What happened?
Well, in the previous episode, the main character finally found out the truth about their long-lost sibling, and it was quite a dramatic revelation.
Oh, I can't believe I missed that. I'll have to catch up before the next episode airs.
In this dialogue, Rosa uses the word previous to mean the episode broadcast before the last episode.
That makes sense. So previous is used to talk about something that was before now.
Exactly.
All right. Now let me ask you, Eric, what's something you did in your previous job that you enjoyed?
Well, in my previous job, I enjoyed organizing events and meetings. It was always exciting to see everything go together smoothly.
Organizing events sounds like a fun task. Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to use the word previous correctly?
One tip is to remember that previous refers to something that happened or existed before the present moment. So you can use it to talk about past experiences or events.
That's a helpful tip, Eric. Well, it seems like we've covered the word previous quite well. Let's move on to our next word. What is the next word, Eric?
Okay, the next word is to provide.
To provide.
To provide.
To provide is a verb that means to give something needed or wanted. Like when someone gives you food, information, or help.
Exactly, Lisa. It's a very useful word. Let's use it in a sample dialogue.
Amber, did you provide everyone with the agenda for the meeting?
Yes, I provided it via email yesterday.
Great. Providing clear communication is essential for teamwork.
The example is very useful. And it seems to me like a versatile word, isn't it, Eric?
Definitely. And it's not just about information. You can provide help, support, or even a meal.
Eric, can you think of a time when someone provided something important to you?
Sure, Lisa. My friend provided me with a place to stay when I was moving to a new city. It was very helpful.
That's really kind. It's great to have friends who can provide help when we need it.
I agree, Lisa. Why do you think knowing how to use to provide is useful?
Knowing how to use to provide is important because it helps us talk about giving and receiving help, information, and things we need. It's part of being in a community or family.
That's a great explanation, Lisa. And to provide can be used in many situations, right?
Yes, it can. We can talk about providing support, advice, or even a service. For example, the library provides free internet access.
It is a really versatile word. It helps us describe all the ways we can help each other.
Exactly. Learning how to provide for others and finding out when others provide for us builds stronger relationships.
Absolutely, Lisa. Well, I think that covers to provide pretty well. Do you agree?
I do. It's a simple but powerful word that shows the importance of help and support.
Definitely. Okay, now, let's move on to the next word. The next word is to get along with.
To get along with.
To get along with. To get along with is a phrasal verb. It means to have a friendly relationship with someone, or to be able to work well with them.
So like when you get along well with someone, it means you are good friends with them.
Sure. Imagine two co-workers, Alex and Maria. They work in the same office. Alex is very friendly and easygoing, and Maria is also quite pleasant. They chat during coffee breaks, help each other with tasks, and even go out for lunch together. They get along really well.
So to get along with means having a positive relationship with someone. Can we use it in a sentence, Eric?
Absolutely. You could say, I get along really well with my neighbor. We often have dinner together and share gardening tips.
Nice. And what about the preposition with? Why do we say to get along with someone?
Great question, Lisa. The preposition with is essential here. It shows that a positive relationship involves another person. So, when we say to get along with someone, we mean that both people are nice to each other and friendly.
Ah, got it. So it's not just about one person, it's about the relationship between two people. Okay. Can you give an example dialogue using the phrase to get along with?
Absolutely. Here's one.
How do you get along with your new roommate, Brian?
We get along really well. We have similar interests and hobbies, so it's been great living together.
I got it. In this dialogue, Jack asks about Brian's relationship with their roommate, and Brian responds by saying they get along well because they share similar interests.
That's correct, Lisa. It's a common situation where we use the phrase to get along with to describe relationships with others.
All right. Now, let me ask you, Eric, who do you get along with best in your family?
Well, I get along really well with my sister. We have a lot of interests in common, and enjoy spending time together.
Ah, having a good relationship with family members is important. Now let me think. Eric, have you ever had to work with someone you didn't get along with? How did you handle it?
Yes, I had. In a previous job, I had to work on a project with a coworker who had a different work style than me. It was challenging, but I tried to communicate openly and find areas where we could agree.
It was great that you tried to find a solution despite the differences. Now, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to get along with others effectively?
One tip is to be respectful and open-minded, and try to see things from the other person's point of view.
That's a great tip, Eric. Thank you for your tips. Okay, shall we move on to the next word?
Yes, the next phrase is to judge a book by its cover.
To judge a book by its cover.
To judge a book by its cover. To judge a book by its cover means to get an opinion about someone or something by their appearance.
Is it like making a decision about a person or thing without knowing much about them?
Yes, Lisa. For example, if you see a person wearing old clothes, you might think they are poor, but that might not be true.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's have a sample dialogue to help understand this better.
Hey, John, have you read this book?
No, I haven't. The cover looks boring.
Don't judge a book by its cover. This book is really interesting and has a great story.
Oh, I see. I'll read it. Thanks for the recommendation.
That's a great example, Eric. It shows how we sometimes have a quick opinion by appearance.
Yeah, and it's not just about books. We might do this with people too.
True. It's important to get to know someone before having an opinion about them.
I agree. Have you ever made a decision about someone by their appearance and later understood you were wrong?
Yes, once I thought a new classmate was unfriendly because he looked serious. But later I found out he was really kind and helpful.
That's a good lesson. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
It just shows how important it is not to think about others quickly. Now, Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to avoid judging a book by its cover?
One tip is to keep an open mind and give people a chance to show who they really are before you have an opinion about them.
Definitely, it's better to give time to understand someone or something before having an opinion.
Well said, Lisa. This phrase reminds us to be open-minded and not make quick decisions based on appearances.
Thanks for explaining this phrase, Eric. It's a valuable lesson for everyone.
You're welcome, Lisa. It's always good to explain English words to our listeners in a simple way.
I couldn't agree more. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Simply Explained English.
We hope you found our explanations helpful and that you're feeling more confident in your English skills.
Remember, practice makes perfect, so keep using the words and phrases you've learned in your everyday conversations.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we'll continue to simplify the complexities of the English language.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.